Hi all. Hi James. Hi Francesco.
Hello everyone. Hello James, Alessandro. Hello
Hi
to our
guys.
listeners. Here we are today with James Straten, the head analyst of CoinDesk, and also doing many other stuff in the Bitcoin. Deep expertise on the markets in Bitcoin, pure Bitcoiner. And we are here today to discuss all about what's happening in this early beginning of 2025 regarding Bitcoin and the implication worldwide. So I leave the word to Alessandro also to introduce a bit himself from his perspective, and then we can start talking about it.
Yes, looking forward for listening to James the updates. He is always very on point on what's going on in the market from political view, balance on exchange, where are we with the cycles. So it would be great now. It will be great now to hear. Actually, January has been a very interesting month, so it would be great to hear his analysis, I think.
Maybe I can start with the broad question, which is many things happened and happened all at once. So there was a Trump election, there was the shift in the liquidity in the market, and then there was a Bitcoin kept going up. All of these are big signs, we all know. And some people say that the current cycle, if there is a cycle, I want to know your opinion on that, is rhyming with the 2017 cycle. Do you agree on that take? How do you see the behavior of the price right now?
So how do I see everything? Obviously, there's a load of red on the screen, so there's a lot of bearishness. Everyone would say in the short term, but I think Bitcoin has this tendency to climb a wall of worry, which it's continued to do throughout January. As you alluded to, we had the inauguration January 20th. That was the day that Bitcoin made its all-time high. But we've had many bearish events and quite a bearish period, and with another bearish event with the tariffs. So just been reading about that today. I think it's extremely hard to put a finger on exactly what the implications would be. I've read many counterpoints. It could be inflationary or essentially deflationary. Either outcome is possible. Could lead to job growth or lack of jobs. You can play either side of it. So it is interesting, but I think what Trump is doing, and it's very clear that he's stuck with his guns. He's stuck to all his policies that he said he'd do, all his crypto policies, freeing Ross, many others that he said he'll do, and he said he'll put tariffs on certain countries. So you have taken for his word of what he's done, and he's done an unbelievable job in the first 2-3 weeks. Where you look at many politicians, especially for me in the UK, where we had a new government who've made the situation even worse, but Trump has just done an exceptional job.
I see. Well, I think that uh, many things happened also all at once. Nobody expected this behavior. I don't know, Alessandro, do you have any comment on the current market scenario?
For me, yes, it was a lot of interest now for the new change in administration. A part of other things, we have for the first time US, a first pro Bitcoin, US, fortunately it's pro crypto, but it's like the price that we have to pay because to expect to someone being only in Bitcoin, I think will take some time. But at least it's a big shift from being against crypto, not only the new president, but the whole administration, also secretary, a new chef of SEC. He will also. They are all in favor of crypto. So I expect for this year, always it's kind of boring having this 100k, 99, 102. But overall, in the long term, it's all bullish situation. Unfortunately, now we have news. DeepSeek last Sunday, and we had now the trade war that is causing a problem. Like, is the pricing going down? But this thing is only short term.
Well, yeah. Well, Sunday it's the only thing that people can really get their hands on as a global liquid asset. So a lot of hedging.
Yeah.
So again, I wouldn't take really any account into any pricing data until futures open later. So yeah, I don't really acknowledge the price movements on weekends. But yeah, this $100,000 threshold is very similar to $10,000. Even in the 2018, 2019 bear market, that $10,000 we didn't eclipse at all. That was heavy resistance, and then we didn't really get above 10,000 until November, December of 2020. So that was almost like a 3-year resistance level. So again, we've now been at 100k or around 100k now for a couple of months, and it's definitely not going to be easy. I don't know why. That's just, I think, human psychology, that we've had this massive run up, 50%, and there's going to be huge amounts of profit taking. Not everyone is like us that had that mentality of buy and hold, but a lot of people had that mentality of, okay, we're going to cash out if Trump wins. We know there's probably going to be a Trump trade. And we've seen that. We've seen over 1 million Bitcoin, 1.1 million Bitcoin leave long-term holders. Long-term holders are anyone that's held for 155 days or more. So people are taking profits, which is right to do. And Bitcoin is now just bouncing above 90 to 100,000 this range. But it's interesting to see that, to me, this has been a spot-driven rally. There hasn't been that much use of leverage. So that's a good sign, and that's a very similar sign to 2017. There was no derivatives exchanges really back then, so it was purely a spot-driven rally. So that's why I think there's another similarity to the 2017 theory. It was also Trump's first term back then, and the dollar index also is ascribing to a similar theory where it topped up into his inauguration, then it went down, which was one of the reasons why Bitcoin and risk assets did really well. So I think the dollars are now 108. It's come down slightly, but we need it to start coming down lower again if it wants to follow his first term. So that would be bullish for risk assets. But yeah, I think so far so good, really.
But historically, Trump on his previous mandate is famous for saying the dollar is too strong, cut rates. So do you think that the market is assuming this as a certainty? That's why the price is not going down that much in the end. And that's utterly bullish, by the way. History slides even to date, or it's forgotten, in your opinion?
Well, yeah, the American economy is extremely strong. Whatever anyone really says, they have GDP growth over 2%, secular low unemployment, and then you're comparing the dollar index, which is a basket of major currencies, against the Europe, which is in a recession, even if they don't want to acknowledge it. You've got the yen blowing out continuously. So you've got major weak economies around the world, and if Trump is looking to strengthen his manufacturing, to me, that's only going to shore up the dollar further. Yeah, he wants to weaken the dollar, but his policies, in my opinion, are going to make the dollar stronger. That's the issue. So he's going to need a strong trading partners with the UK, with the EU. So we've got to see how everyone else kind of retaliates. Canada are already imposing tariffs, and then we've seen with the Bank of Canada, they're doing the ending of QT. They're going to start issuing bonds, so more QE, more money printing, and I don't know how that's going to work when you've got the Fed probably holding rates for the foreseeable future. So he's talking about a weaker dollar, but it's not going to plan at the moment.
Interesting. You mentioned, James, that 1.1 million of long-term holders they sold. Firstly, interesting that the statistic is long-term holders are 155 days, while in Bitcoin terms, 55 days is like a short term. But taking that 1.1 million, in which time frame have been sold?
Since September.
September. Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
from 70 to 110, many they had probably the target to sell at least a portion.
Yeah, so long-term holders held, I think, about 40 million Bitcoin.
Okay.
At the top, they now hold 13.30 million, 13.1 million. So it's still extensively held by long-term holders, but I think the chart shows that when long-term holders peak in their when long-term holders stop selling into price strength, that coincides or near enough coincides with the price top, and that's happened at most cycles. Happened in 2017, 2021, 2013. So as long as we're continuing to see this distribution of long-term holders, this is being followed through with the inverse of short-term holders that are picking up the Bitcoin that's being sold. But one, it shows that, all right, over 1 million Bitcoin have been distributed and the market's only gone and climbed higher, which shows how much strength there is to this market. And two, short-term holders have actually outpaced the distribution. So I can't remember, I actually tweeted about this a couple of days ago, but if I just remember it. So since the start of the year, long-term holders have distributed 66,000 Bitcoin, and long-term and short-term holders have bought 140,000.
Okay.
So that's a 2.1 to 1 ratio, which is a huge amount. So anything can happen in a given time period in the short term, but you're building a really, really strong base here. I'm assuming if you're buying here at $90,000 to $100,000, you're not looking for that short term profit. The short term profit was to buy at 60,000, 70,000 and offload at 100,000. So to me, if you're picking up coins here, you're not looking and seeing market structures and bearish wider economic factors. This is actually people stepping in and holding for the long term.
Okay.
Good sign ahead.
Another point is that, let's face it, I mean, Trump is the crypto president. It's not the Bitcoin president. It's the digital assets. So I would have expected crypto to pump more, but it didn't. So it's still too early and it will follow later. The ETFs that give more credibility to the Bitcoin as an asset, dismissing the rotation into crypto, which, as we have seen with Ethereum, is not happening. Also other coins, Solana is spiking but not convincing. And is it over or will be the same thing? Of course, you don't know, but are there early signs which could say that Trump, as a crypto president, launched this meme coin, so it's a big sign, but it didn't work out actually. So that's hopeful for us, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think Trump, I don't believe he launched the meme coin. I believe obviously his name is on it, but Trump licenses out his surname or his family name. He has hotels, he has books, he has pens, he has everything. So it's just another string to his bow that he just outlines. And so yeah, I don't think he was responsible for it. Maybe his sons were involved, but yeah, again, it was very obvious that where this thing was heading. I think it got to $15 billion in the quickest amount of time of any financial asset ever. So it obviously shows the power he's got. And yeah, he's not a Bitcoin president, but his relaxing of regulation is the important part. You could argue if it's too relaxed, where we're seeing probably celebrities will start launching their own meme coins or whatever. But I think it's important how much regulation he's kind of taking away now, where in Europe we're over-regulated, and that's shown in the lack of growth. but he's kind of taking the strains off it. I know, like the banking sector, that's had a lot of regulations and strains on it, so that will allow more leverage in the system, more credit expansion in the system. So yeah, he's going to be a very, very relaxed regulatory president.
Okay. Do you still think that Ethereum is the king of crypto, and without another narrative, the increase the pump cannot happen in this year, or to think Solana will overtake, or maybe the whole thing is dying off? How do you see the crypto stuff?
It's interesting that you look at the sentiment on Twitter, and Bitcoin is down 10% from its all-time high, and it's like a bloodbath out there. I think that's quite indicative. I think a lot of people are underweight Bitcoin and overweight many other coins, and I think that kind of goes to the bearish sentiment. I just don't think there's enough people in spot Bitcoin. Even in some of the other Bitcoin proxies, such as MicroStrategy or the miners, they're depending on which ones we can talk about. Some of them are underperforming on a longer term time frame. So even those are underperforming, adding to the bearish sentiment. So yeah, I think this is really where we're seeing spot Bitcoin decouple away from crypto, something that we've known for years, that Bitcoin and crypto aren't correlated. They use the same underlying technology, but they aren't correlated. And we're seeing that in price. There was a great chart that River did that showed the dislocation between Bitcoin and crypto in terms of prices. And yeah, you're seeing these altcoins being nuked to that 50, 60, 70, 80%. So imagine if Bitcoin drops another 10%, that will take the air out of that market again. So yeah, it's fascinating to get that sentiment on Twitter.
It's also interesting that I think more and more crypto guys, they are less crypto and more Bitcoin. The alt season, there was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and as you said, now it's decoupled, and Bitcoin is it will be like the king of the market. It's hard to pass the message that Bitcoin is one thing and crypto is everything else. But I think once we see more and more Bitcoin dominance going up, likely people will stop to discuss about crypto and focus on Bitcoin. Also because the CEO of Coinbase said there are 1 million new coins per week. So at one point, people will say, okay, enough with all of that. It's inherent on this the decentralization of crypto that there will be a lot of meme coins, shit coins, useless coins, scam coins. So there will always be, while Bitcoin is another thing. Maybe this will help the cleanup, and also people will channel the focus on Bitcoin.
I don't believe so. I don't think that will happen. I think the alt season is a theory on the basis that Bitcoin goes up, and then Bitcoin's dominance goes up. People take profits into Bitcoin, rotate, and then move into Ethereum. Ethereum goes up, and so on. You go down the risk curve. We go further on the risk curve, and then you get the extended gains. But I think now, because there are just thousands upon thousands of coins, and the structure of the market has changed. Bitcoin may be in the 4-year cycle. That's really up for discussion, but I don't believe that these altcoins are following any form of structure. So to me, that would mean that these coins just kind of have their moment. It's up, down, sideways, up, down. And for example, if you kind of look at the Ripple chart, Ripple has just this sideways action, and then it just has these random legs up. And that's kind of what I believe alt season is. It's these coins that have no real market structure, no real reason why. But yeah, they'll go up just on, but there's no market structure anymore, where we could kind of predict alt season and the coins that would go with it, or there would be an industry sector rotation. There really isn't that anymore. It's kind of just hopping on to see. It's a hop on, hop off kind of theory. and it just makes it even harder to actually understand how these things are even rotating and moving now.
We don't want to understand. I mean, it's fine. It's like anyway. So great point is that yes, Bitcoin's decoupling is taking away from crypto, but also we have seen with the launch of ETF, there were 2 months where it also decoupled from the market. If we look at it now, it's decoupling from liquidity in these 2 months, and so there was a great strong indicators of resiliency taking. So it will just go better and better from here, because the biggest obstacle have been like Michael Saylor said, the 3 obstacles: ETF, the accounting rule, and the other one all cleared. So now there is nothing to stop it. Then if you have any comment on that, but I also want to link to the Michael. Yeah, go ahead.
No, was that that was Michael Saylor saying the 3 things to get it to $5 million a coin was ETFs, the FASB accounting rules, and SoB025 of banks clearing for custody.
Okay. Now, everything is.
It's never a good sign when there's so much good news into the market and the market doesn't price. It would assume that the market has priced in these events, but there's just no way that the market can price that kind of stuff in. It's just impossible, because no one knows the net effect of it. It is like the ETS when they launched last January. We went to an all-time high 2 months later. You can't price these kind of things in, because the market hasn't got the liquidity, hasn't got the flows, it hasn't got the customer base yet. So yeah, that prediction will come. I just think there has been so much news into the market that it just needs time to digest. You've also got so much outside noise now with everything. So I just think that the market needs to find its weighting. But yeah, it's been an incredibly bullish period, and I think having SoB025 revoked, like, that is huge. That really allows institutional participation from the banks and that the lending, but we need to make sure that we don't go into the fractional reserve part of it. We need to hold the banks to a high level. No doubt they will be doing their fractional reserve banking on Bitcoin, but as an industry, we should hold them to the highest standards. They need to be fully collateralized. The loans need to be backed 1-to-1 or even over collateralized, all these things. Otherwise, we will get a bear market at some point, and it will have the same effect, just on a greater wealth level. So yeah, these are all really good factors. The in-kind now with the ETFs, and that was obvious. That was going to come after SoB025 got revoked. The problem is, I think, when people have a go at Michael Saylor for talking about the word digital assets, crypto, or anything that he's done, and they get all annoyed at him, he's like, he's not talking to me or you. He's playing a completely different game. He's targeting a completely different audience, and he needs to appeal to governments or the US administration, and he can't go on his whole Bitcoin maxi approach, because that's just not going to fly with the US administration. He needs to be completely as relatively neutral as he can be, and he's just not caring about what me and you think.
Yeah,
yes, also because he has direct interest for several billions of dollars now. So there is no reason why he would think about me and you or what we think about. So there's no way. Also, he has obligation towards his company, whose treasury is very big in Bitcoin. So he has to do the best for the asset at this point, not for us.
Yes, exactly.
One question on the bank custodying Bitcoin. So, for example, the ETFs, they could do paper Bitcoin, but they are legally obliged to keep to don't do it. So if they do, actually, there is no incentive, because the risk to bring all of down I think it's not the right incentive. And secondly, they will break the law. Banks, in case now they can custody Bitcoin, they also are legally obliged at least to hold the Bitcoin, the equivalent in Bitcoin of what the customer are buying.
Yeah, I don't know the specific ratio that the banks have to hold. I can't imagine it's 1-to-1.
Okay.
Do you know the ratio that
And
the?
now, I actually will be a good point to investigate now because it's new. I think there is no banks at the moment.
Yeah.
It's just that we have the new rule, but
Yeah, look, they're not going to do anything illegal. It's like all that ETF talk of they don't hold the Bitcoin or anything. It's nonsense. They will abide by the laws.
yes.
So yeah, I'm not sure what the ratios are going to be. Yeah, again, that's something that's really interesting, but I assure you it will probably be fractionally reserved. And again, we don't know what that's going to look like. But I do think there will be games being played because there's always games being played, always profits to be made, and they'll play at the finest edge possible. It's going to be an interesting at least an interesting year. And who knows? You can't predict. I don't think you can predict anything now. I think there's just too much uncertainty. I think there's too much outside noise. And now Bitcoin is so entrenched into the financial system that it just makes it even harder. Maybe that means Bitcoin is more susceptible to macro cycles than its own cycle. But I was thinking that if what Donald Trump really wants is lower rates, that's it. So my thinking was the tariffs are going to and he even tweeted that he doesn't care about short-term pain for these tariffs. So what he could do, not him personally, but is create that uncertainty and create some form of dive or correction in the stock market. And if we can get that correction in the stock market enough, that could be a way of getting Powell to lower rates, and that in turn means people will then flock from the stock market into bonds where they need buyers, and then you can kind of get that flywheel going.
Okay.
So maybe, I don't know, it might be a 4D chess move, but Trump could try and crater that stock market because maybe like all of us know that long term, yes, stocks are going to go up due to the currency debasement. But if he can get stocks down in the short term, and then get that so-called recession, who knows how they define it anymore, and that will get people to buy up America's bonds. That will get them in a healthier position. And then obviously with Tether's report or their profit reports last week, I can't remember how many billions of dollars of profits they made. I think it was $13 billion net profit last year. 7 billion of the profits derived from the firm's US treasuries and repo holdings, and then 5 billion of that was unrealized appreciation from gold and Bitcoin. So he's going to be looking at people to buy his bonds, and I don't think there's a better buyer out there than Tether. So I think that's the game Trump's playing. I think he's far smarter than people give him credit for. I think I think it's his second term. He got shot. I just don't think he cares about what anyone else thinks anymore. I think he's a lot smarter with the right people around him. And he is a nationalist. He loves America. No one can deny that. So I think he's going to try and get America in a healthier position than he received it. And I think that's the game he's going to try and play. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but
we will see how it plays out. Yes, thanks for the. We will see in the next months already signing 200, 250, more than 200 executive order in the first week was already a sign that you want to change many things.
Yes, also, I mean, internationally, there is America, China, but China is not as strong as 20 years ago. So you cannot even succeed. I wanted to ask you. This is I didn't understand personally, but you said Tether have reported $14 billion, but if the interest rate is 5% on the bonds, so where is the additional money coming from? From the appreciation of Bitcoin they hold, or because it seems too much? I think that they own under 40 billion, something like that. Then 5% should be 7 billion. So there's 7 billion from the other assets, other kind of income, I guess.
From what I remember, they hold
Under 40
Treasury
something.
bills and reserve rose to 94. So from what I am reading, or I believe, Tether disclosed 143 up 7 billion backing its deal. Treasury bills in reserve rose to 94 billion.
Okay.
So they are the 20th largest buyer of US debt as a sovereign, if they were equivalent to a sovereign nation. And that's only going to go up the list. They're only going to go higher and higher when you've got China and Japan offloading US treasuries as well. So it's this whole geopolitical deglobalization, I think, world now. I think everyone's kind of having to fight for themselves, and who can stand on their own legs, to be honest. So yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic that's moving out. And I just don't think price is a true proxy. I think it was interesting to see gold. The Financial Times on Thursday reported that there was a shortage of gold in London, that the New York people were buying, investors were buying, and the price then made an all-time high on the Friday. So nothing's really priced into this market, and I think there's so much nuance going on that no one really knows what. They can't really put their finger on it at the moment.
Okay, back to 2025. Do you think will be the year where institutional investor will finally flow some percent of their portfolio in Bitcoin? I think the year started in a good way with Larry Fink at Davos saying, now the discussion is not anymore, should we put Bitcoin or not? But it is how much? Should we put 2%? Should we put 5%? Do you think in the next 12 months we will see institutional investors in the ETF?
No.
Not yet.
No, like we're seeing dabblings, but I think a lot of the 13F filings, and I think a lot of the inflows that we see in these ETFs are basis trade. It's not pure going out and just buying the ETF and holding the ETF. I don't believe that's happening. I believe a lot of it is basis trade, where the investors are long the futures and short the underlying ETF to capture that spread between the two. And I think that's about a 14% spread at the moment on an annualized basis. So I think there are a few institutions. Look, you've got a few pension funds. Yes. You've got the central bank in Czech Republic talking about it as a reserve asset. You've got the rumblings. But I don't believe there's anything material there yet. I think a lot of the ETF inflows last year was retail. I think there was a lot of retail rotation from holding Bitcoin in cold storage with a few institutions, but not the institution adoption that we're imagining. I still think that is a while away. But again, I think Bitcoin needs to go to a much higher level. And the higher the price is, the more liquidity that can be in this asset, the more leverage that can be taken into this asset. But I still think it's remarkable that we're on a Sunday, everything's shut, everything's closed, and you've got a really big macro event that's gone on around the world. And the only thing people can look at is Bitcoin. And I think that is so fundamentally important as a gauge to liquidity. That's a gauge to how are people feeling just around the world. And sure, it's going to sell off because that's probably the how they're going to hedge it. But I think that is such an important indicator. And the people that I'm speaking to who are skeptical, being like, that's quite an important barometer to have. That's something that can trade that liquid over the weekend, just as a sense before futures open. I think that's just such an important and one of the best things about Bitcoin.
Yes. Also,
Go ahead.
talking about to 2025 now, maybe we can. Thanks, James. On ETF, I think maybe this year we will see more significant. I personally see more significant institutional because they will have 24 months from the at the end of the year, but we will see. It will be higher than last year. We will see how much. I wanted then to ask the question on Bitcoin strategic reserve. That was the topic most discussed this month, both at the US federal level, but even more, I think, at US state level. We have seen now 18 or 19 states that introduced a bill. How likely do you think will happen first 100 days or this year, at least one of the US states or more or federal state? Will it happen?
Not on a federal level.
Not
I don't see that happening. Again, like, what's the upside? What's the upside for the country to announce a strategic reserve that could send the price higher? Or and look, who knows if Trump even wants that? Like, he's there to make money. If he's smart or not, that's up for another discussion. But I don't think it's in anyone's interest to say there's a strategic reserve. I don't think he has so many things to work out, and I'm sure that's on his mind, or there's an agenda for it. But he has to, even if he says there's a strategic reserve and the price goes up a bit, that's not going to sort any structural issues out of the country. He's doing everything structurally first. He's really sorting so many issues that have been instilled into the US economy for so many years. And I think once that 100 days is up, then maybe he can look to a strategic reserve, if that's even a possibility. But again, I don't really understand US politics that well on the state level. Maybe you guys know it better, but maybe that's something that the states can do on an individual level, and that makes more sense. It's states looking after themselves. And again, I think it would differ state by state, a bit like pension funds, where the best funded pensions, or the ones that are most over collateralized, or the ones maybe that are most desperate, can adopt Bitcoin. But yeah, I think every state's going to be different. I assume Texas and Wyoming and Florida will be the ones at the forefront of all.
Hearing from listening to Scaramucci, he's very optimistic on both federal at one point, maybe not in 100 days, as you said, because there are many more important topics for the government. Even if we know that Bitcoin is probably the most important topic, but yes, but at federal, U.S. states, he is optimistic also because there are many Democrats who are in favor. Also, we saw a shift not only for the Republicans but also the Democrats. So when it will pass, it will be at the House, not only the committee but also in the House Senate. They could have also votes from the Democrats. So. And we have 18 or 19, I think, states, at least one hopefully will pass.
Yeah, and look, if one passes it, I think this year, I think that's a huge milestone.
Yes. Yeah, that's also the question would be, having one US state, do you think will trigger a big shift?
Yeah, I think everything's a big shift. I think it's just to have it talked about in boardrooms, and at that top level that's where if we could have Bitcoin talked about in every single boardroom on a public level and on the state level, but no one actually acquires it, I still think that's an incredible milestone, because we know it's going to happen, but we need the conversations to happen. And anyone that's adopted Bitcoin, I think Eric Semler said for Semler Scientific, this took months to get into it. MicroStrategy was unique because Saylor had the majority of the voting rights, so he could kind of do it himself. So it really depends on who it is and how much power they've got to do it. So yeah, it's again, Elon Musk with Tesla, majority voting rights, he can pass that kind of thing through. But again, on the state level, I don't know how much, what the power is, how long that takes, what the discussions are like. But look, the discussions are happening, and that's the right step to happen. My only situation is how does the economy in the US evolve from here? I don't really think it much matters anymore when people look at Europe. China, because China are in massive amounts of deflation, and Europe are in a recession. So we're all really looking to America here, and they're the key driver of growth, and the consumer seems really strong.
Thanks.
But I'm hopeful because when he signed the order, there was somebody, maybe, I don't know, he said, you might not be convinced, look convinced, but I'm going to make a lot of money for this country. And he signed the order. So that's we should be up. I think he will do it. He likes bold moves. This is one of those.
Yeah, this is where he's very different to a lot of politicians. Look, he's had loads of businesses, successful, failed, but he's been in business, and that's important. In the UK, if you look at our front bench that have just come in, none of them have run businesses. None of them understand business or anything from that kind of level, and you can really tell. So Trump does get that whole capitalist mindset. I think he doesn't. I don't know how much he understands on free markets, where we obviously get the free market and how that kind of is the solution to this all. But I think, again, as long as there's governments involved, and there's always going to be movements behind. It's just going to be. It's nothing's going to be solved with fear and politicians and governments putting strings behind the doors. It may be a short-term fix, short-term solution, but we know they're going to have to continue to print the money. You look at the budget, the majority of their expenditure of national debt, welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, then all of it. I don't know where they're going to cut from, and you're going to have to reduce government spending. So it's going to be an interesting experiment. But thankfully, we've got a non-bearer asset that we can all hold.
As Linalden said, nothing stops this train. Also, listening to James Lavish, the interest on debt is more than 1 trillion and is more than all defense and military expenses. And that's huge for a country like US.
And then you think about everyone else that has to pay their debt in dollars. So if the pound is at 122, 123 against the dollar, we've got to print almost twice as many pounds to get the same amount of dollars. And it's just that snowball effect that absolutely kills you as a sovereign nation. So if you're not growing your economy out of the debt, then you are in serious trouble, where America can grow their economy out of that debt GDP. They can lower it, especially with Trump. But as us in Europe, I am definitely not hopeful of that.
Okay. Alessandro, how longer?
We have last 5 minutes. Francesco, you have... we can maybe last 2 questions to James, and then we go for the
something
closing.
A bit educational, maybe for talking about MicroStrategy, the stock. I got confused because I see bonds, Class A, preferred stocks, and every week there is something is selling. So I got confused. Can you explain briefly what is selling to the investor, of course, institutional investor? What's the difference between A, preferred stocks or bonds? The things is selling to get more Bitcoin, if you can inform us on that.
Yeah. So how much Bitcoin does he hold? He holds, I think,
460,000.
450, 60,000, something like this.
Yeah, it's so he's now been doing this now for 4.5 years. And for me, it's always interesting to see that I've been an investor now in MicroStrategy for about 4 years now, just over 4 years, because in the UK, we haven't been able to get access to any Bitcoin exposure. And MicroStrategy is the only kind of Bitcoin exposure we can get. But how MicroStrategy is kind of defined now, they're kind of defined as a volatility equity. they have an implied volatility. So like what the market expects their volatility to be over the next, say, 30 days is higher than any Magnificent Seven stock. And he always goes on about volatility being vitality, and that's how you kind of get the options market with all the investors getting interest in your stock. So he's done 4 ways of getting capital. So he's done cash, which was at the beginning. It was that defensive play to acquire the Bitcoin. That was at the beginning of his 4-year cycle. He then went into ATM share sales, at the market sales offerings. So that's just straight selling shares into the market. He's done the convertible bond offerings, the debt-like structure. And now he's done the preferred stock, which is a split or a middle between an equity and debt. It offers fixed dividends like a bond, but it doesn't have any voting rights. And then in the case of any liquidation event, preferred shareholders get paid out before the common stock shareholders, so they sit higher up on that ladder. So this is the new instrument. Yeah.
I have a question, because a very important question. Do you think it can default anytime with this structure of MicroStrategy?
No, he can't. He none of the Bitcoin is encumbered. So he had Bitcoin in collateral on one of the loans to Silvergate, but he paid that off. So none of the debt is encumbered. So he has no liquidation price. I think if the Bitcoin price goes to $13,000, his debts go above his assets or something like that. But again, that doesn't mean he has to have any forced liquidation. He just rolls over new debt. He can post more collateral. There's ways he can get around it. And I just don't think the price is getting that low again. So I don't think that's the risk. His risk was in November 2022. During that was the risk. He's done the 4-year cycle. And I think anyone that's gone and done their 4-year cycle, I think has learned a lot. FTX never went through never achieved a 4-year cycle. Luna, any of these frauds. Sorry, MicroStrategy is not a fraud, but if you don't make it through a 4-year cycle, then there's questions. Even that Tether have made a 4-year cycle. Binance have done a 4-year cycle. Once you've done a 4-year cycle, you are you deserve your stripes, whatever happens. So yeah, he's got this new preferred stock into the market, and it's going to be, to me, the pricing was really good. It was a 10% dividend, and the offering was slightly below $100. It was $80. But I think it's a new pricing to the market, a new equity. I think it just needs time to be digested by the market, like all of this stuff. This is all completely brand new to everyone. So I think it just needs time. And I think when he does, I think he's issued up to $2 billion worth of preferred stock. This one was 600 million. So it's like about 25-30%. So I can guarantee when he goes off and does another preferred stock offering, there'll probably be better terms. So he's got out of his $21 billion plan, he's got about $18 billion left on his convertible debt, and he's got about $3 or $4 billion left on his ATM. So he's chugging his way through, and I never ever thought he'd get to 500,000 Bitcoin, not in a million years. So he's rewriting financial playbooks like no other.
It's also similar to our normal investor who already did 4-year cycle. So if he already did 4-year cycle, likely the average price is maybe 20K, 30K, 35. It's not 80, 90 or 100. So
no,
less.
And MicroStrategy's average price is around 65,000, and that's exactly what, if you bought Bitcoin at the same time as Saylor, your average price would be there. That's exactly where. So he has no more. When people say he buys the top, he does, and that's what we all do. We are all buying that similar price level if you've been in that for Bitcoin, that cycle. So yeah, he's playing the game. The same as all of us. He has no edge onto the market. He didn't announce a Sunday buy today.
Hey, yes.
But he has his earnings this week. And I'm sure there'll be a convertible bond purchase maybe as well, or offering, sorry. So
as long as there is volatility, options traders say there will be buyers of these instruments. Once there will be no volatility, no more buyers.
Yes.
At a certain point,
yeah, and the important part is that his debt to assets is quite low at the moment. His debt is only around 14-15% of his assets.
Okay.
And on a historical average, it's around 25%. So he's actually under leveraged at the moment as a company. So he needs to get that leverage up. And the way to do it is leveraging up with that debt, with the convertible bonds. And as you said, we can get the traders trading. So yeah, he's in a good position. And yeah, I just think, let's see how Q1 evolves, and I think a lot of tailwinds will start happening.
Nice.
Thanks for the answer, James. Very, very interesting. Let's see both Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. I think we are approaching the end of the podcast. I wanted to say thanks again. Really great expertise. Always interesting to know your opinion. Also, we had the last podcast a few months ago, but so many things happened in the last 3 months. So we discussed about completely new things. Like 3 months in Bitcoin, especially now, is like 3 years.
Yeah.
You live many lives in Bitcoin every 6 months.
Yeah, it's just an insane space. But no, great with what you guys do, and just trying to educate as many people as possible. That's all we can do, really.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Then let's have another one at the end of the year. So we will see how the year played out.
Okay.
Oh, let's hope. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye,
everybody. Bye.